Gaming and BS episode 320. Coming to you Monday, November 30th, 2020. Welcome to Gaming and BS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Glad everybody's back. How the heck you doing, Sean?
I'm doing fantastic, Brett. How are you?
Not too bad. How was your U.S. Thanksgiving? Long weekend, I assume?
It was. I had the Thursday, Freitag, Saturday, and Sunday off. But and I gamed Sunday with Mr. Hobbs's. And it was okay. He kind of felt we were probably a little out of it. Like it's like, you guys like,
Hey, are you here? Hello, McFly, playing.
A lot of tryptophan hangover
than
anything. So it was okay, but relatively low key. I streamed for a couple hours on Saturday about gaming. Mr. Frank House was nice enough to stop by and say hello, AWOL Trooper as well, and a couple others.
Nice.
And we were going through, I got on the kick of next, like, 6th edition, 5th edition, 6th edition. What's 6th edition? Where's the virtual tabletop? And so we went back to 2017?
Okay.
2007.
All right.
Where Chris Perkins and them announced the online initiative, D&D Insider.
Oh, yeah.
Gleemax.
Yes. Wow.
So it was, hey, thanks, Rory. So it's
Bit of fun.
it was, well, and he was saying that Roll, right? We had Roll. I can't remember what it's, the link, but we had it in a die roll. But it's the new virtual tabletop that somebody is developing, and I think just came out in alpha or beta. And so Eric was talking about how great it is, whatever, and I said, okay, great. Each teach their own, and we were going through, he's like, check out their video. And so we were going through the video, watching the features of it, and you can create your own character sheets in it.
Oh, nice.
And it's very geared towards independently published, small press type games, because you could just create your own sheet. Whatever.
There you go.
But I thought to myself, why? And then they were big on matchmaking, like find your next game, right?
Okay.
And I was just kind of going through that saying, hey, like the character sheet thing, cool, neat, but that's way too much work. I don't want to do that.
Fair enough.
You want to create your own character sheet?
But now,
Brett?
So when I get ready to do playtesting with the PIP system for Avalon, yeah, I would.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Because I don't think I can find a PIP system character sheet on Roll20 or anywhere else. So I'm like, okay, that could be cool. If you could do some customization or whatever, it could be fun. But you have to like to do that stuff, right? You got to like it.
It was very cool.
Feature rich. Feature rich. But do you want those features?
But, I think sometimes, people are trying to solve a huge, a problem. And
Is this a solution looking for a problem?
Well, that's one question. And then the other is, how much do you want to solve all the problems?
We've talked about this before, right? Is that sometimes it's like an answer to a question no one asked. And other times, I want to solve everything for everybody all the time. Whoa, easy there, big guy. Back it down. So,
yeah. So it was good. It was fun. It was just
cool, man.
Kicking the gaming can around, and that was it.
I ran my first edition Greyhawk game last week Tuesday.
Yeah,
that was a blast. Everybody's having fun. My buddy Zabe, who is struggling a little bit with the no skill charts because he's a Rollmaster guy. I've talked about that before, and. He's like, man, I really, at the end of it, a couple of them leveled up because the experience points, the way it worked. Lenny's fighter got to 2nd level. Okay, cool. And Zabe said before we left, he goes, I really like the simplicity. I really like it. And I'm like, huh. I said, well, there's some complex pieces, whatever. He goes, No, there's something kind of cool about the fact that we don't have to. It's more descriptive, and we do this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, just like you listen to my show. He was saying, I like these things, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm really, the part of it for me is, I said this before, was the nostalgia piece of, hey, and because we're playing online, I do a quick search for the old school Monster Manual monster look images, right? So when they fight something, they go, whack, that's an ogre. And some of the guys are like, what the fuck is that? What? I should know what that is. But the ogre image from first edition is essentially drastically different in many ways from other stuff. So that's been a lot of fun. They got a bunch of, I shouldn't say a bunch, but they got some cool magic items. They got to meet Mordenkainen, so that was cool. They had a good time there.
That's awesome, man. We're going to talk about AD&D a little bit in a random encounter, as some people had commented, and I found their comments interesting. It was more towards them versus Brett, but and I don't even know if it's really AD&D, but there's some people that had mentioned about old school gaming and their game group, and we'll expose them a little bit.
The other thing I gotta say is a lot of fun is pulling out monsters that I've never used or haven't used in a very long time. I love doing this in general. So a spectator, you know what a spectator is?
A spectator, no.
So it's like a beholder, has a big mouth underneath it, a central eye, and then 4 eye stalks above. They're summoned from, I believe, Pandemonium, then they serve for 101 years or whatever it is. And they guard something. So they encounter one and like, oh my God, it's some fucked up beholder. And Lenny's like, I ever shoot an arrow? And it goes, hang. And it just, because it can speak to you in your mind. It has initiative. It says, basically, look, I'm almost done with my service. I'm paraphrasing. If you just fuck off out of here, I won't kill you all. Don't touch this thing. The rest of this is just happenstance treasure that I have, but don't touch this gem. Huh, okay. So they got a bunch of loot. They got a bunch of loot that way by playing smart and trusting the creature, oddly enough. And then they also found out something about Vecna, and so that was cool too. It was a damn good game, man.
Sometimes I think about being the game master, where there, with everything that I put down on paper or in prep, in my digital notepad, whatever, and none of it is hostile. Inherently, it is not hostile. Just to have that, just put it down. Whatever monsters.
That's one of my monsters. We've talked about this before.
None of it is hostile.
No, I love doing it
at the beginning, ever, and then just seeing how quick it turns hostile because players make it.
Somebody's a dumbass that throws a dagger at it.
Right.
Or insults it or whatever. I love doing that.
Yeah.
You encounter giants, and the first thing a giant does is he comes out, throws a boulder near you, thumps his club down, and screams, "Food or die." All right. I've done that before for like AJ's buddies when they were younger. And we got to fight the giants. And AJ's like, no, we just got to feed it. Give it food.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what do we got to fight it? And AJ's like, no, the quest is over here. Screw this, essentially, right? So they feed the giant, and the giant's like, okay, cool, thank you. And he toddles off. And then eventually the giant kind of tracks them and follows them because he's like, hey, these guys are an easy meal, and they feed me and don't fight. So they would like go out, kill a deer or something. Then the giant would come up. Can I have some? Sure. So at the big fight at the end, the giant comes out and goes, oh, don't hurt my friends, and starts wailing on the bad guy for him. It was just, again, it's a monster, but how you playing it? It was that was so much fun when that happened. Yeah. That's fun shit. I love that. All right. Let's see. Enough about that. Let's see here. So if you haven't entered your email, you should do that. gamingbs.com/explore-Eberron. Drawing on December 14th, you say? 2020?
Yeah, December 14th, we're giving away of Exploring Eberron. If you have your voice, if you have an email if you have submitted your email in the past to our email list, you are automatically entered to win.
Correct.
Congratulations. And then if you aren't, then go ahead and do that. I can assure you, the last time we sent out an email was like probably a year ago.
Yeah,
so
we get a thorn in our foot every once in a while. Like, oh, we haven't emailed people. When it's like, hey, how you doing? Want to take a survey? And then we just walk away.
Right. It's just to make sure something happens with the show, or somebody goes, we haven't heard from you in a while. We'll send out an email because I'm not a big fan of Facebook anymore, and Twitter is kind of, not everybody's on Twitter or Discord.
And it's like Patreon and everything else, but everybody somewhere has an email.
Right.
If you're listening to us, you probably have an email. You need it for everything else. So at least it's a way we can reach out to you and say something has occurred or there's a change or something. Not that we plan anything to change or accents or anything horrible, but all right. So anyway.
It's a PDF copy, Exploring Eberron, and we've got, we'll probably give maybe 2, maybe 3 copies away. And then the last one, the Age of Rebellion, the call for Rebels to join the Alliance is out. It's out on the forums. It's out to patrons. I think we've got at least 15 people interested.
Nice.
That's just people that have responded on the forums that might have come from Patreon. I know there's some from Patreon that haven't come over to the forums yet because we're going to use that to muster. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem finding 4 people to play once a week, once every 2 weeks. So Eric Frankhouse had volunteered to maybe run a game or 2. So if there's game masters that are interested in running some Age of Rebellion, I will be more than happy to say, hey, that would be great. I'm going to got to get some house rules together so everybody knows kind of like, what can I make and how do I make it? Yep. Do I go by the book or
put the bumpers up so everybody knows what they're banging off of? Yep.
Yeah. So that's that'll be coming. That's on my to-do list. And then how it's gonna flow. Like, how do I play? Where do I find the game to play? Yep. And all. So I will hash all that out, and so people can sign up for certain adventures, and some will run twice. And we'll get that rolling, and people can.
This has got me jazzed, man. This is one of the reasons why you mentioned last time. Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Because I'm moving and I got surgery coming and stuff. But at least I want to get the fucking move done, get settled in the house, and then I can be like, all right, Thursdays, wham! I'm gonna start running BSer games. I'm gonna be in a spot to do that, and I want to get that rolling. Fan surgery will delay me, but at least I can get some one shots or something going. Because, god damn it, I'm slacking off and. You're making me look bad. I got to get in there.
We've got 5 players for Alice is missing.
Cool.
And we're going to do that. And then I'll probably run it again because I know there's a couple of people that couldn't make it. Or we put out a poll, got some people to say yeah, and then we got some availability squared away. And so a couple of people were like, hey, am I still in this or not? So we've got 5, but people's schedules change all the time. So it's, I want to offer that out too. So that's going to be, that'll be fun. I think you're better off playing the second game because we'll probably know what the hell we're doing.
It's kind of like
the second game,
like the first game of Mothership. Second game of Mothership. I got this.
Don't install the new OS for a couple months. And then exactly. Once it's clear, you're good to go.
Yeah. Don't buy the first year Ford. That's just a fact.
But it'll be fun.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Sweet, man. All right, let's random encounter. We got a bunch of good ones. So.
Random encounter, a segment in the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media.
You start.
I will start.
Excellent.
Matt Bonehoff, this one's, he emailed us, and he says, story time. I promise it'll be relevant by the end.
I trust
That's Matt's promise.
I trust Matt.
Ours.
I trust him. It'll be fine. Keep going.
I woke myself up coughing at 3 this morning, and halfway through one epic hack, I felt a muscle in my back spasm painfully. I knew that by morning it would hurt to move at all. In an effort to mitigate that, I moved to the floor and spent the next couple hours gently stretching. Stretching is good.
It is good.
Fortunately, I had a fresh episode of Gaming and BS downloaded. I really appreciated you guys keeping me company as I ride around on the floor in the dark hours of the morning.
Oh, Matt, I'm glad it wasn't like I was listening to your show and I started writhing around in pain. So I'm glad that wasn't the case.
Yes.
Sucks that you have back pain though, dude. That's horrible.
Totally terrible.
That's not fun at all. Hope you're feeling better, man. You know, speaking of like waking up bizarrely, Sean, I woke up, this total aside, I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning, wide awake, like could not sleep. So I've been up since 5. I'm like, oh, neat.
That's crazy.
I'm like, is this like some weird I'm suddenly a morning person flip switch thing? Whatever. It's odd. I kind of feel a little sleepy now, but not that bad. Anyway, Matt, I hope you're feeling better, man. Let's see. Gabe is up next. He comments on AD&D. I feel like I'm ineffective joy. Is anyone running an OSR game, or, as in Sean's belated case, a downtoned 5e, whose players are not saying this? Edit. But seriously, I'm glad things are going well with you, with First D, and you, Brett. Old school is probably my favorite mode in which to play, but I've been pretty glum about my 0e lately, because my group has faced some issues similar to what Sean has dealt with recently in his 5e. Brett's join in and enthusiasm for 1e has reinvigorated me, however. Well, thanks, Gabe. That's cool.
Yeah, so this is a thread.
Yeah.
That I wanted to go through.
It's a good thread. I read it.
Yeah.
Go, next.
So Harrigan replied to Gabe specifically on AD&D and says, I think it takes players who aren't afraid to fail, who enjoy challenge and exploration more than just kicking ass in battle after battle, and who just kind of get the ethos of old school play. As much as I love big chunks of the OSR, I actually like it more now than when I was running it in the early 80s. There are loads of bits and that leave me cold. Many of the original systems and retro clones are laden, I think, with antiquated ideas and mechanics, at least for my tables. But as soon as we move into postmodern / neo-OSR systems like the Black Hack, Mork Borg, Forbidden Lands, Troika, Mothership, and the like, a whole gaggle of us get excited to play. We want the mood and the vibe without weapons that do different damage based on the size of the creature, per class, to hit tables, and half of the other things that have Brett excited in his AD&D game. Wink. Some of the modern systems slew pretty close to the original games, but directly address some of the things that bug players who are coming at the scene from a different headspace. Best example, the Black Hack, which I often espouse love for, is a mildly modified version of 3d6 roll down the line for character gen. That can result in some pretty awful stats, the kind that make some players think the PC is unplayable.
I've heard this.
But to be honest, has a sweet leveling mechanism that punches that problem in the face every level. Every level, you have a chance to increase every stat. It's really fun watching people go through that process and to watch the system to give those bumbling PCs a leg up. What's up with your OE game? Is it Swords and Wizardry White Box? So he's replying to Gabe kind of, well, hey, what's the deal?
Yep.
And so
and then
Gabe's
Gabe replies.
Goes in, yes.
He wraps it up. Oh man, how we would love to run and build Swords and Wizardry from White Box. Our base is complete, and all game theory aside, and judging how my players like to do things, I think this is for the best. Listeners have heard about our games before. It's Swords and Wizardry Complete, so heavily modified that, referencing some in-game fiction. We now call it Bards and Battles. I've sat here on the couch now for about an hour composing multiple drafts, trying to explain our situation. Wow, dude, that's a lot of thought. I think our current game environment is so atypical and puzzling that I'll try instead to address it through a series of bullets. First up, my players' previous experience with D&D are only 2nd edition. In the case of one player, this is solely through video games. Whoa. My players have experienced no other tabletop RPGs with the exception of one player, if I remember rightly, playing a session or two of Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars. The players who want to play no other game than Bards and Battles. The group has been a casual home group in which I actually discontinued my original Swords and Wizardry game and migrated my players to a friend's 1E game so I could run Conan 2D20 for others. As a result of the pandemic, one of those former players asked me to run, at that point, quote-unquote casual, D&D Online, to which I consented. Session 0 concerns. There was no Session 0. We began Bards and Battles as a casual beer and pretzels game. We started fresh with an utterly original homebrew world, my favorite mode of play, which may have led to some of Session 0 or lack thereof concerns. I told my players that they may detail, and thereby own in part, any area of our emerging world. The players later told me that they interpret this to mean that their PCs who originated from these areas were important to the emerging narrative, and hence entitled to a degree of plot armor. In my view, as the game developed, the players grew quite attached to their characters, so much so that they exhibited signs of turtling, as well as negotiating for character shields, that now threatens to upend the inherent tone of old school play. I began to feel like the referees, my gaming culture, was at odds with the players. In an attempt to reach a place of shared understanding, I reread Swords and Wizardry to highlight core assumptions of old school play and reinforce these principles to my players. I admit that my professional demeanor can be argumentative and aggressive, bordering on intellectual bullying, which probably resulted in a player walking away from the virtual table moment, much like the recent incident that occurred between Sean and Jeff. My group has made up, but I remain as uncertain as ever. I don't feel like I can get a read on my players' expectations. I feel like we have a fundamental gaming culture disparity. Theirs seems very informed by video games and consequently argues that tabletop gaming likewise should be a walkthrough, which can be true for modern RPGs, but is not at all how I want to run old school. In their culture, I still feel encounters should be balanced and beatable. All dungeon features should have a purpose. All side quests should be explored. The game world waits on players' actions. PC death, if there is any at all, should be heroic and meaningful. This is not how I want to run the old school mode of play. For this style, I would use a different system because Swords and Wizardry provides all the wrong tools, but my players don't want other tools. At the beginning of the year, I gave up Swords and Wizardry and what I'm beginning to think of as a casual passive gaming to run Conan 2D20 for specific people. I'm wondering if I will do so again, self-selecting in the pandemic age among other gamers on the internet. I'm not sure if I should do this, if this might be considered elitist or insular and not at all beneficial to the gaming community at large. Hence, I'm pretty glum about all of it. Thanks again for your care and interest, Harrigan, and for the opportunity to organize my thoughts, feeling on the subject. Dude, that's some really good introspection, Gabe. That is, this is going to sound corny, man, but you should feel proud of that. You sat down and figured this out and thought this through. I honestly think the biggest piece you have there is, you're at an impasse. You're at a disparity. They want to play X with these tools. You don't want to do that. You know?
I was like, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I feel you, brother.
Totally feel for him.
I distinctly remember girl I dated in high school and college, Kat. She was a big Marvel superheroes fan, comic book collector, just like me and whatever. And we were playing Marvel Superheroes, the role-playing game. And we had one person in our gaming group who wanted to fucking murder people all the time. It was like just an excuse to make Murder Hobo, but in Marvel. And she'd try to run this game, and she would get pissed as hell. And it was just so frustrating. The rest of us are looking at this dude like, dude, this is a Marvel superhero game. Yeah, well, but I've got blah, 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 blah. The only people Wolverine kills are mooks. Like, you know, the Hand Ninja Clan, they just turn to dust and smoke when he kills. I mean, what are you doing, you know? And but that's what he loved the system, but he wanted to do that thing with it. And it reminds me very much of this. Swords and Wizardry is not built, as Gabe says, to do what they want to do with it. And Sean, I don't think Gabe is being elitist. I think he's saying, I know what I like. I know what I want to do. If I'm playing this way with you guys, it's okay, but I'm giving up fun, right? And if gaming, as cliche as it is, gaming is about having fun on all sides of the screen. And if it's not what you want to do, man, you're burning daylight.
Yeah.
Wasting your time, quite frankly.
It is, no, it's not being elitist at all. That's for sure. And it is more of a gaming preference for somebody at the table. And it just happens to be a person that runs the games.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, and I'm sure there's other people that have gone through this. This is not like,
I've gone through it. Dude.
You know, it's not like, it's 2020, you know, fourth quarter, you know, it's bound to happen. It happens anytime during somebody's playing life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but when it does, it's I think things change over time, believe it or not. And
your tastes change. I like pepper more now than I did before.
Things
right?
don't age well.
Not
right?
always. Not for everybody. Some people don't care. Some people drink Miller Lite, and that's what they drink, and that's all they're going to have.
And that's okay.
Uh-huh.
But I think sometimes we'll look back, some of us, and we watch the D&D cartoon and go, holy shit, how did I watch this thing? Like, I was 10 years old or 12 years old. It was different.
Yep.
My mind was in a different place. My expectations were a little bit less, or It was great to me then, but it isn't now for whatever reason because I'm not the same person.
I think sometimes
older.
I think that the change in taste sometimes, the reason I think the elitist thought hits us, we're like, oh, am I being elitist, is because you will see people will use the terms, this is a better way to game.
Right.
This is superior. And even if they're not using those exact words, when you tell a group like,
You're
hey,
not
I
playing
don't
it
like to game this way.
right.
I want to
Yeah.
do this other thing. I want to game this way. Oh, is that a better way to game? And the answer, quite frankly, is yes, for me it is better because it's more fun for me, right? If you can avoid telling anybody this is a better way to game or you don't know what you're doing and oh, you're doing it wrong, then you're being an elitist dick. But generally, it's like, no, it's just my preference, man.
Yeah.
Agreed. Excuse me. And it totally comes down to that. And yeah, if you got people who want to play, Bards and Battles, and that's not your gig. Sean, you and I talked about this off the mics a couple times, and I know Swick and I talked about it too, and you, Humfleet, and I. And sometimes we have to realize that I am not responsible for everyone else's fun. Right? I don't have to sacrifice myself to ensure that this group of 4 people continue to have fun playing whatever game it is. I don't have to do that. It's your free time. It's your free time. It is all your hobby. And even if you're a player and you're like, well, I can't let the group down. Really? Really? Every time you go, you hate the sexual innuendos. You don't like this person. This other guy's a jerk. The person running the game, boy, he or she just doesn't seem to know what the hell they're doing. Nobody wants to do anything different. Yeah, but I can't let them down. Why? Really? I mean, I and again, it's weird. It's social mores and all that crap. But yeah, you're not responsible.
I'd Andy, who's one of the guys that's in the Jeff group, he bagged a deer. He's a deer hunter, much like Brett, and brought over some venison for me. Just dropped it off. Really, I was like, man, thanks, man. Brett won't even do that.
I live too far away.
I know, I'm just kidding. But as he stopped by to talk, we talked. I mean, he's been kind of out of the conversation. I think he listens to the show. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty he's one of the rational ones of the group, I would say. Not that anybody's irrational, but I talked about it to him, and I said I talked to him about the conversation that I had with Jeff over the phone, and talked about some of the challenges of the group and the game and the Curse of Strahd scenario and everything, and it was a good constructive piece because Andy hasn't been gaming with us for 10 years. He started a couple of years. He started with us in Tomb of Annihilation. Well,
he's got an outsider. He has an outsider yet insider's perspective, right? Yeah. Where he doesn't have 20 years, 30 years of baggage.
Yeah, And so we kind of talked about some of the details. I mean, and this kind of vague talking right now because a lot of people don't know the context, but it was around just the GM doing a lot and prepping, and then somebody not appreciating something, and then how the expectations of the players, and a lot of this stuff I've regurgitated on the show, and so it was just an interesting conversation. And it goes back to what Gabe was referencing, and Kev's in the chat right now, Kev Thulu, and he took a break from gaming for a while. I think he's getting slowly hooked back into it because he's going to play Alice is Missing with us. And but for the longest time, man, he played with Brett's group for a long time.
Yep.
And then he played with me for a little bit, and kind of Brett and I a little bit. And then he just kind of went off and did Monster Hearts with a bunch of different people. He's in the Gauntlet community, which is huge. I brought that up with Frank House. I don't think it was Eric that I brought it up to. And he's like, I haven't heard about it. And it's with Rich and Jason Cordova, they got a huge community where if you sign up in their Patreon, they literally run 100 games a month. Yeah. 100 games a month. That's crazy. And they do.
But you can find these communities out there that are doing stuff you want, right?
Right. My point is that Kev probably played with many, 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 many more people.
Oh yes, absolutely.
He's still alive, he's still breathing. Nobody hunted him down, but maybe he's being stalked by some crazy person. But
mostly me.
Yeah, right. By Brett. But my point is that he went out there and he probably knew one or two people, or he knew of them through podcasts and never really met them or whatever. And he's just been running he had been running games like Monster Hearts like every week, couple times a week, with people that aren't like Brett's group or my group or any of that. And he does it really well, and he's met other people through that he, he's like, hey, he knows Mike on the West Coast. Mike's going to be running with us on Alice is Missing. Great. That's cool. Friend of yours, friend of mine. Great. So it's just my point of this whole synopsis is that there's communities out there, maybe even the BSer community, where you're going to find some people that are going to be fun to game with, and some probably not so much. I don't think it's a uniform, like there's no silver bullet to a game group by any means.
There's a lot of things that have got to click. A lot of things have got to click.
Yeah. Well, the more people you add, the more dynamics are changed and different. Mm-hmm. So, you play with two people. You kind of know what you're getting. You add 6 every time. And whatever like situation you're doing. If you played the same game all the time, same game, same world, homebrew, and it was the same system all the time, and you wanted to run it the same way you've been doing it for the last couple of years, and the players are cool with that, that's great. Then you get that long-term campaign that lasts for 10, 20 years. But the minute you're kind of like, I really don't want to do this anymore. I want to check this out because I heard it on some show or I watched some people stream it. It kind of intrigues me on how it does things differently. Then all that like steady Eddie stuff is like in jeopardy, big time.
Yeah.
And then you got to come to the fork in the road where you're like, hey, do I want to keep playing like this as much as I'm playing like this? Or am I going to venture off and try something different and try something different? It doesn't have to be broaden your horizons, because that seems like you're then pigeonholed into something that's like the grind. And it's not necessarily the grind for everybody. It's just something that they want to try differently,
I think the other piece too with that, I love what you said there, and I think the other piece of this is that it's not elitist, like we said. The other piece is, and Gabe talks about, I need, kind of hand-picking people. Yeah. Why not?
Well, right.
Sean and I are friends because we get along and we hang out, and we've done it when the COVID. No, we don't. We hate each other. But when there's no COVID, we're like normally in person doing stuff. But I'm going to say this. Not everybody's going to be your friend, right? And not everybody's going to be somebody you want to game with. And not
everybody has to be, though. They can be great at the table.
No, totally, absolutely.
I may not want to go out and have a drink with them.
Yeah, and we've talked about this many times before, is you can, in the age of online gaming, which we can do now, you can go out there, find that small group, like, hey, I really like this crew of 4 people. They love a lot of the same types of games I do. We're having a good time. And when you come up and say, hey, I want to run Dungeon Crawl Classics, and those 4 people, yeah, that's really not our thing. They're not going to be mad at you if you, quote unquote, cheat on them with a Dungeon Crawl Classics group. It's okay. Right? Yeah, it's. I think there's a corner turning, if you will, and it used to be, you and I have all had this, and many older grognards have had this, where this is my group. It's me and 4 dudes, or me and 5 dudes, or it's this crew of people, usually guys, and that was it. And because you didn't know anybody else, it was very hard to find anyone unless you went to a con or something.
Yeah, man, nobody knew anybody
and now
else.
It's easy to find.
Yeah.
Now it's easy to find people.
Yeah, I kind of laugh sometimes.
That was pretty intense. Keep going.
I haven't been to a local game store in a while, but I always I can't help myself but think that there's still a cork board with a 3x5 index card on there that's like, hey, I'm looking for a game, or hey, DM seeking players, and it's like, go online, man, and post it somewhere that's going to be worth a damn, not like your local game store. Unless you're going to want to play local, face to face, but now that's all shot through. Anyway,
shot the hell no.
Rory,
this one's yours. Yeah, you read this one.
Rory's in the chat. Comments on AD&D. I have not played much this year, but I have to say my dissatisfaction with 5e and exhaustion at the massive options for Pathfinder /3e has also drawn me back to AD&D for when I do get back to the table or finally get into Foundry or some such. I reflect back on the decades of joy I had running running AD&D, and like Brett, I have a soft spot for Greyhawk and the Duchy of Jeff.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Going to start with modified B1, B2 Haunted Hall of Evening Star, mix in some homebrew, then gradually have orcs, bugbears, ogres, giants, start organized raids out of the mountains, as well as isolated reports for weird, unknown monsters appearing in the high valleys of the barrier peaks. Plus, magic items. Lots of cool magic items. As you said in the episode, finding really cool, weird, powerful magic items rather than having everything come from your class. 5e Pathfinder, I'm looking at you, giving them a reason to adventure. I still want to use speed factors. Whoa, that's crazy.
Crazy.
Speed factor, that's nuts. Modifications by armor type, but I'll have to accept that I have an incurable mental deficiency in that particular area and that my players will probably not enjoy such oddities. I'm super glad your game is going so well, Brett. Like Gabe said, this episode's enthusiasm was invigorating. Oh, and the last time I tested AD&D, a staunch Pathfinder player who is very touchy about not having skills mentioned he wanted to draw a picture of a villain who had escaped so he could show it around town. I said, sure, go ahead. You would have studied calligraphy and likely some illustration back in your monastery. Roll me a d20 to see how good your likeliness is. Dude rolled a natural 20, so I said, quote, your monk is a natural artist. He can draw incredibly lifelike scenes, and his picture of the villain is perfect, end quote. Watching the light go on in his eyes as he realized he could just make this shit up at the table, and his character now had a cool new skill, made a huge difference. Smiley. Rory.
Nice, Rory. One of the fun things my crew had was they found they're going through this little underground passage, and before they found the spectator, and they have to cross this water, and it's about knee deep. So like, okay, what do we do? How do I get across the water? Is it fast moving? Was it So they're trying to figure it out because they're like first and second level. Like, okay, is there something in the water? So they get across.
I love your player voice, mental thinking voice, Brett.
What do we do? Yeah. And so somebody says, I turn around and check the water. And everyone's like, oh, fuck yeah, it's a good idea. Get that bullseye lantern over here. It's slow moving. So they look, they see a shiny this, a shiny that, and there's this bag. They find this bag, they find the sack in the water. Okay. And they start like, oh, what's this? Oh, what's this dagger? What's this sword? What's this? Oh, a dwarven axe head. Just the head of the axe. The haft is gone. And Lenny's like, Alpha, dump the sack out. Let's see what's in it. Oh, yeah. So I'm like, 50 gold pieces and this and 2 swords. Like, oh my God, it's a bag of holding. It's got to be a bag of holding. And then like, well, it's either that or can bags of devouring? Can you do stuff? What's that? Oh, I want to stick my hand in there just in case, because they got confused. They couldn't remember how each one worked. It was great. And they figured out probably what it was, took a couple chances. And then when they had the opportunity to go back to the wizard that they had met, to get him to identify it for him, like, oh, thank God, it's a bag of holding. Okay, good. We got to keep putting stuff back in it because they were a little nervous. It may have been a bag of devouring or something. So it was just, the gear is fun. They loved it because when the characters don't, at second level or third level thief or second level fighter, they don't have a shit ton more oomph to them than they did before. But now they've got a frost brand and a flame tongue blade and a couple other trinkets, so they're pretty happy. It's going well. All right, thank you, Rory. My turn. Laramie on healing. I think this is a tricky subject in gaming, as quote-unquote realism tends to be counter to fun. One more random system to throw into the hat. It's from me, so you guessed it, Hackmaster. Laramie's Hackmaster guru. A wound is healed based on severity. For example, a 1 hit point wound takes 1 day. 2 hit point wound takes 2 days, becoming a 1 hit point wound. Then another to heal completely. 6 hit point wound, 21 days. 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. Really puts a premium on magical healing and the traits that heal faster. The most important lesson, the best way to deal with damage is not to take any. Very nice, Laramie. I like it. I commented on this one on the forums. In 2021, I'm going to get a hold of and read Hackmaster. I'm gonna get a hold of it and I'm gonna read it. I may not play it, but by God, I'm gonna read it because Laramie talks about it every time he writes in about it, and I see him at a con. He's like, "Oh, blah, blah," he tells me this cool shit. I'm like, "Man, I gotta take a look at that. I gotta take a look at it, even if it doesn't turn out to be like my thing. I'll get a PDF copy or something. I'll read it up." Anyway, you ready, man?
Having said that, yeah, we should get to the main topic since Laramie has leaned into it. All right.
So I've got surgery coming up soon, as I've said before.
Baby.
So yeah, no, not that kind of healing. Not that
healing.
kind of healing. So we'll talk about.
Get that feeling. I get
Oh my God.
sexual healing. Sexual.
I might have to see if they can keep me in the hospital for an extra week. I'll have to have my surgery on a Monday. Anyway, shit's getting rescheduled. COVID's eating up hospital beds and all that stuff. But anyway, I want to talk about injuries and healing. So I got a gut check question for you, Sean. How do you like your healing in your games? Slow, realistic, fast, easy? What's your preference as a GM? So if you're a game master, your characters are wounded, the PCs are out there, they're dinged up, nicked up. How do you like it?
So I thought that some of the previously released games back years and years and years ago, the healing was tough and didn't make much sense. Like, in order to heal, you had to have the cleric have the spell, and in order to have the cleric do any type of healing to more than just one person, you needed a long rest or a rest.
Yeah, and you could get like 1 hit point a day in some systems.
Right. So you adventure, so you probably game for like 2-3 hours, but in game, you've been in combat for a whole 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So you've been out maybe wandering for a couple hours. You run into a wandering monster. The party gets their ass kicked a little bit, and they're like, hey, I need some healing. The cleric heals, and then they're tapped, and the fighter's still down too far.
Oh, gotta rest.
Gotta rest. Gonna pray for 8 hours.
Or whatever it takes.
Gonna pray for 8 hours. Gonna be huge. Gonna be huge.
Keep going.
Great cleric. It's great cleric. Love the cleric. And so it happens, and then it's like noon. Or not even noon. They got to do 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever. Great. So in an attempt to kind of help that whole thing, they do short rests, long rests.
Well, what do you like, man? What is that asking? What do you like, though? Do you like the short rest, long rest thing?
I'm not a big fan of the short rest. The long rest, maybe. And I don't mind the long rest sometimes because usually a long rest is, hey, we're at the end of the session. This is a good time to stop. And usually it's at a point where everybody is in a safe zone, right? They're not out in the middle of the battlefield, at least in my experiences. And we come back and everybody like, oh, I don't remember how many hit points I had. Did we heal? Did we rest? So it's just easier to say, yep, you did a long rest at the end of the last session to the beginning of this one. And in that rule, in 5e specifically, you get all your shit back. You get all your hit points back. Maybe you spend a hit die, whatever. And all the spells are great. And everybody's like, nothing happened. Nothing, like all the bad is all gone. It's all gone.
Is that what you prefer? Is that your method?
I don't. Not anymore. Like, I don't want it to all just be gone. But I understand on how it sometimes has to be. And I think some of that...
Well, it doesn't have to be. It's a style of play, right?
It's a style of play.
It's absolutely a style of play because where I'm at now, I mean, if you go like Call of Cthulhu style of play, if you get shot... I mean, I distinctly remember a couple of characters were getting a gunfight in a Call of Cthulhu game. They were like, we need to make new PCs. A couple of other players were like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm in the hospital for like a month. Look at this chart, man. There's just no fucking way. My character's done. I'm out. I'm out for a month. And we still have to stop whatever it is. So I got to make a new PC because I'm out. Right? That's like uber realistic. I mean, there's crit hit charts, and I've told the crazy story about the Phoenix Command game I played where I shot a 3-round burst. The first bullet, it tracked every, like, blew off a guy's finger, then went through his cheek over here. It like tracked all the damage. I'm like, are you kidding me? Trying to be hyper realistic. I think the key is like the style of play. I think it comes down to the impacts on the flow. You know what I'm saying? And the flow of your game. Does it take too long to heal? Do we feel like we're going to die all the time? You know, there's never a chance.
That's the rub, right? Like, we have to heal, because if we don't, and part of this happened just Sunday, right? We were in a combat in low fantasy gaming, and I'm Ranger guy, and I took one hit, and half my hit points are gone. Boom, one hit, and it was from like an ogre, and the round finished, and I couldn't roll initiative for shit, and it's kind of important. Because if we get initiative, then I could take on this guy and go, okay, everybody has initiative. We can all go, and people can go before me, and then we can judge on what to do. But my point is that I was half down, and then the next initiative, you could choose to roll initiative and continue, or you can flee. And there's a party mechanic for running away.
Yep.
And if you run away, you run away. You just have to narrate it, and then you're done, and that's it. There's no attacks of opportunity. There's no withdrawal. It's just gone. You're boogie out of there. And one of the guys rolled initiative, and I'm like, dude, I thought we were going to run away, man. Like, if I get hit one more time, I'm done. Like, there's no 3 saves, all that in low fantasy. And I think 0 is like, done, you're dead.
Yep.
So I'm like, if I get hit one more time, I could be finished. And we could have just said, hey, we run away. Well, so we had that debate. And my point of saying that is, it's a style of play like you were saying, Brett, but also there are people that are going to want to do that rest and need to be at 100% because the game master may not let off the throttle.
Yeah, I think one of the cool pieces with a mechanic like that in low fantasy, Dungeon Crawl Classics has, I can't remember, somebody's going to correct me on this, but there's like hey, if you're dead, there's like you check to see if you're really, really dead and so on. There's a lot of different ways. You got the death saves. If you go by Joe Manganiello's, like his meat grinder version of death saves are pretty bad. If you go by like gritty healing in 5e, you got to spend hit dice for long rest. Short rest don't get you shit, type of thing. One of the things I have found is that, like in my 1e game, I'm wondering how the guys are going to handle this, you know, because you can't do the short rest, you know, the long rest. They're so used to that. And they're like, oh, geez, what do we do? But what happened is as soon as they found out what the mechanics were, they played to them. Like, oh, if I rest, I can only get, like, let's say, for example, I can get 1 hit point back a day. That's it, no matter what my level? Yeah, unfortunately. That fucking blows. Okay, then.
So then...
Keep the cleric alive, and we've got to play smart. So they pushed it a couple times, but they're also like, okay, we go out, we do an action, and then we back ourselves off. When the opportunity comes up to take a job or do something, and they befriend the wizard, and they're hanging, and they hook up with the wizard, talk to him, whatever, and he's like, okay, look, if you guys are gonna do this thing, here you go. Gives them 2 potions of healing. It's 2d4 plus 4, whatever it is, right? It's not a lot, but it's enough. Okay, we got
first level.
We got 2 free not kill me shit here. Okay, right. This is cool. And they also learn that when they see certain things, there's the bad guy, an ogre, and a whole pack of orcs. They're like, okay, we can't engage. We really want to take out the bad guy. We could maybe do the bad guy and the ogre if we were real lucky, got real smart. Well, the dwarven contingent that they partnered with comes in, smash. They engage the orcs. Like, okay, cool. The distraction is here. Now we can go. Then they start raining fire from on high, you know, dropping boulders and shit. So they're playing as smart as they can. Like, I don't want to get fucking hit. Right? Excuse me. So I think one of the keys for me anyway is I personally don't like it to be uber realistic because it's so slow. And quite frankly, friends of mine who've been active duty military, who've been in firefights, tell me stories about a guy who gets, you know, hit in the shoulder and the AK round goes out his right hip. He got hit in the left shoulder because that's just what happened. How you happen to be laying down. However, weird ass stuff happens. There's no such thing as a clean, he only hit me in the shoulder. You take a 9mm round through your shoulder and it goes out your shoulder blade, you may never use that arm again. Right?
Well, and hit points are supposed to be abstract.
Exactly. That's the thing. Right?
As well,
if you get to these abstract systems like that and you try to put too much reality on them, it kind of it gets confusing. It's disjointed. It's really tough. And the fact
that's why you got to play Star Wars.
Star Wars would be really good. Yeah. Because you could get hit and you kind of fall down and go, ah.
Get your hand cut off, man. You just replace it.
Well, yeah, just replace. Yeah. Well, that's because it's cauterized instantly because the piping hot laser sword.
Right.
Hot off the oven. One of the things, though, that depending how you take your healing and how you want to deal with injuries, once the players know what it is, if it's really realistic or if it's dangerous, let's say even D&D not so dangerous, or Dungeon Crawl Classics, it's you got 5 hit points, you take 4 points of damage. Well, I got 1 left. You're still as effective at 1 hit point as you are 5 because it's abstract. However, the need for the healer goes up in those games. So if you're playing that style, the need to have a cleric or somebody with who can heal, which goes back to the old thing we grognards would call it, hey, we need a cleric. Which one of you? Who wasn't the cleric last time? You're a walking Band-Aid this trip. Oh, fuck, I'll be the fucking cleric. Blah, blah, blah. Right? AJ, my son, loves being clerics, dwarven clerics specifically, because he likes them that can kind of tank up. And even he's played Osric First Edition, he still likes dwarven clerics because they're tough. They get to be dwarves and whack on stuff. And he likes the fact that clerics are needed and necessary. And if the cleric goes down, the party's like, fuck it! They back the cleric up, and that's the flee button. If you knock the cleric down, that's the we all bail out of here. And I think, anyway, that's kind of stuff I like, and I see that the impacts on the flow of the game, it's uber realistic. It can, one gunshot changes the entire game, potentially. If every combat you're running is incredibly realistic, and you guys get shot, well, he's down and he's out. His kneecap is blown off. He's not running. He's in shock. Okay, great. He's unconscious. That whole, what you thought would be a fun little firefight isn't anymore. So it's the style of play plus what is it that you're trying to emulate. You've got to make sure those two things jive. And really understanding what's going to happen if you ratchet up the intensity of the injuries and how slow it is to heal. Because you say, wow, I really, death is on the line at all times. It could be just fucking right there on the edge. All right, cool. Yeah, but we want a lot of action, so bullets will be flying, da-da-da-da-da. Well, you can't be John McClane running across broken glass. Because you sever something, get hurt, you couldn't walk, you're done. Right? It doesn't work. It's incongruous with the reality that you're trying with some of this stuff. So I think that's where some games, if you try to take the using D&D as the example again, if you take the abstract concept and try to slap it in too much reality, it can get kind of wonky, So I think if you really want to have a realistic one, you need to take a different system, a different mechanical approach to it, because the impact of the game is just incongruous and it's just hard to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think I would enjoy grit, like true grit. Zweihander might be on the border of that. Like it might be just too much to that one end. And I think you could still. So one, there's a couple things I think you got to do as a game master. You can't throw everything at the party all the time because then it becomes this. Well, it's just a race to see who can last longer.
That's kind of where some of the old school adversarial GM, talk comes in. Like, you don't ever give us a chance to breathe.
Right.
Right. Even when the healing mechanics are so not in our favor.
Right.
Right. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
So, so you got to help them out in that regard. Give them a potion or two, throw them a bone. So that's one thing. And then doing it where it's like, well, I'm going to fight and then I'm going to rest because that's the deal. Like, I have to. Like, okay, so how do you get around that? Figure that out. So I think there's a medium in there, happy medium. And one of the things I think Jared Rasher put in the chat too is, maybe it's conditions. Like maybe we don't play conditions hard enough. So maybe you're not dying all the time, but as time goes on and kind of wears on you, you take levels of exhaustion in 5e, and you're not, so as a game master, you don't have to put the big hammer on them. Let them, flee. Maybe do something like, hey, you're thirsty, you're hungry, your movement's halved, whatever that is, versus imminent death. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely.
I face this
love
guy,
that. Yeah.
I'm going to get bonked and I'm going to die. Well, no, not necessarily. You can leave and be fine, or you can leave and maybe you're just tired or whatever.
So that actually gives me an idea. I mean, if you were to do like critical hits, like sort of a critical hit chart in 5e, you could take the conditions chart and make it, this is totally off the top of my head right now, and make it a critical hit chart. You get wailed on and it does enough damage and you are paralyzed. Okay, you have the paralyzation effect. Clunk, you could say it's paralyzed for 4 rounds or whatever it is, but you're affected by that thing. You're blinded. He cuts you across the eyes. The blood is running down from your forehead. Your character's blinded until you wipe the blood away or 2 rounds have passed. Exhaustion's a classic for 5e in that space. But yeah, those types of conditions, I think that it's a narrative condition, but it's also very high level at that extrapolated, generalized perspective. I think it lets combat flow, but still be interesting.
Well, and it's still something that you kind of have to, if there is anything you have to hash out in a fantasy game, it's this. Specifically, like, how does healing work if you're playing anything other than like by the rules for 5e or something like that? If you don't, you are going to be in a lot of trouble because you're going to run into huge amounts of issues negotiating this stuff. So even with Brett saying, well, you're blinded. Oh, I'm blind. I might as well just give up and throw my character away.
Yeah.
I'm done. Kill me. Jeff, I hindered him from death. Like, I didn't kill him because he got a disease that he shouldn't have been able to come back from. Like, he was the curse.
Yeah.
And in the book, it's like anybody that dies, you can't raise. It's just that's it. Well, I retroed that, which in game, I thought I was doing the right thing, and he didn't like it. He thought, well, I'm playing a gimp character, I might as well not even bother, and it was like, come on, man. And that character ended up killing the freaking Lich at the end.
Nice.
Dude, I'm tired of trying to play rational with you.
I'll tell you what, I did actually for my AD&D game, I wrote this up. I said, hey guys, here's how PC death works. Right, healing and stuff. I said PCs die at -10. That was just a rule we always had, -10 for whatever reason. You're 100% unconscious and can do nothing at 0 hit points. You lose 1 hit point per round at that point until you're stabilized or dead, which is -10 again. Someone spends an entire round, they can stabilize a PC to whatever hit points they're at. 0, -1, -2. They'll lose no more. You don't need a potion of healing to do this. Anyone can stabilize. You can stabilize them. Just there, you got that for free. You stop the fucker from dying at -6. Good for you. Potion of healing can be used to stabilize you as a free action. Basically, you use the whole thing. You dump it on them, smash it on them, whatever it is you do. Allow the magic to do its work while you just take care of your whatever else you got to do. Then I said the healing spells work as expected to heal and stabilize a PC to whatever HP they're at, as long, once the healing's done. So if you're at -5, they heal you for 4 hit points. You're at -1. Good for you. You're not back yet.
Yeah, see, Brett plays the negatives.
Yeah,
you're
not back yet.
Yeah. And stable, though.
But you're stable.
No more losing.
You're not bleeding out. It's like, okay, cool.
Right.
That's great. You stable. We can flee out of here. But I was very upfront with him. I said, this is how this is going to work, because I knew it would be such a drastic change from 5e and Pathfinder that we had been playing quite a bit of. I wanted to, make sure it was very clear in how we did this.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece that happens too is when you change genres and you go to Star Wars. Let's say you played FFG Star Wars, where it's very narrative and so on, and then you flip that script to something that's super gritty, realistic, like a Call of Cthulhu. If you're used to playing a heroic game or a space opera game or something that's very and in Call of Cthulhu, you get shot with a machine gun, you're fucking dead. You play Delta Green, you're dead. If you get shot in Delta Green, weapons have a lethality rating, right? So the guys, they're in the desert. Horrible thing happens when I'm running Delta Green. Weapon goes off. Lethality rating. I roll percentiles. Now, it only had a 10% chance to kill you within this lethality range. If you roll over that, you just take the two 10s, add them together, and that's how much damage everybody takes, which is still normally enough to fucking kill everybody. Because I rolled 17. A 9 and an 8. Bam! You're like, oh, holy shit. Yeah, it's a grenade. It kills you. Yeah. That's what it's meant to do. So, again, I think your point is absolutely valid that when you're talking about the healing and stuff, if that is going to be not necessarily a major focus, but you have to understand that everybody's got a plan until they get hit. No plan survives for contact with the enemy. And if players don't understand how their characters can get healed and act while they're hurt and what being hurt does to them in a game where there's guns and lasers and, super hot plasma blades, they're going to make assumptions. And they're probably going to be wrong if they've never played this game with you before or this game in general. They're going to be fucking wrong. And you're right. If you don't lay that out for them, that's going to be a world of hurt, because how you deal with injuries and so forth, I think that's it's important to lay it out front. Not just how you hit somebody. Oh, you roll this to hit them, then you do damage. Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, so this is how I damage the bad guys. Flip that script, kids. What happens when you're hurt? When your PC's hurt, how does he get better? How does she heal herself? Oh, she got shot and she lost her leg. Oh, that's Call of Cthulhu. You have no fucking leg. You got to hobble around, wheelchair. It's the 20s. It's not. There's really no decent prosthetics. Compared to what we have now. This is, that's big. That's a game. That's a hobbled character. What Jeff had a little bit on the nerfed perspective, but if you in a Call of Cthulhu game, you take their arm off, that's gone. There's no growing that back.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go.
No, go ahead, Brett.
No, I was going to ask you, what do you? We talk about like emulating the genre and so forth. Do you find games that are realistic, like Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green, is that almost too much for your taste as a DM or player? Or
I don't think so, because it's not one of the core tenets of the game.
Okay. Yeah, Delta Green has combat, is deadly, but it's not its core thing. The core activity of that game is not, don't go getting gunfights.
Yeah, I would say that it's not any different than, maybe a little bit different than real life, as much as, Sean's going to go and investigate something that's kind of weird and spooky, maybe, because I'm, a weird book owner that reads novels on horror and got caught up in the mythos or something. But my first inkling as a character in that world is not that I'm going to a gunfight. Like, I'm not going down the boxing ring or walking down the street hoping I'm going to get tackled by 5 gang members for some reason.
You ever play Call of Cthulhu with that one gamer who wants to be the boxer or the machine gun toting guy, or wants to be the combat monster in it?
Doc played a soldier in the Master of Nyarlathotep.
Mm-hmm.
Shocker.
Did you explain to him?
Well, we played Pulp, so it was, carry a big boomstick kind of thing. Not a big deal. And I was okay with it. And his write-up was, hey, I'm active military army, just got done with World War, the big war.
Yeah.
And settled home in Wisconsin, and then, got caught up, knows a contact that kind of got looped into this and got kind of, he's a big guy, looped in for security. So he was kind of like the security role, right? If there any needed security, he would be that guy because he's got the military training. So he didn't have to, he had a shotgun, but there were times when he didn't have a shotgun. So it wasn't, he didn't play him as, I'm here to kick ass and take names. I think he felt that he could kick ass and take names if he needed to, which is kind of the way it went, right?
I've played before where you get that one person who wants to be the combat monster. Like, this is not a combat monster game. And I think that's one of those times when you need to, I love your earlier point, is you need to explain it. And you need to look that person down and go, look, Doc, if you're making that character, You expect to be a combat monster and punch Cthulhu in the face. It's pulp, but you can't do that, right? If you're playing very purist Call of Cthulhu, like, look, if you shoot the deep ones, they kind of don't care. They just kill you.
Right.
It really doesn't matter. I shoot the star spawn. It eats you after you go crazy.
It eats you.
Yeah, it's not the core activity. But in a game like, in a rule system like Savage Worlds and stuff, it's fun, it's fast, it's furious. It's that pulpy activity, a core piece of it. And I think that's where getting people to understand what's being emulated.
That's
right?
Indiana Jones.
Yeah. If that's what we're playing, oh, cool. Indiana Jones gets shot. And later on, he says it's not the years, it's the mileage. Right. He got the ever-living shit kicked out of him. And he's like, oh, well, feeling a little sleepy.
I mean, there was a part where, what's her name was, dabbing his wounds and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was after he was like, I don't know, dragged on a freaking truck and then shot and went through a market and then, beat the big guy at the airplane and then, had to swim to a submarine.
Yeah.
And then the end of the day.
Yeah. And then he's like, I really need a beer. Jesus, I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that, again, I think that's when the injuries and healing don't match, that's a problem. And the don't match comes on multiple levels. They don't match player expectations, right? They don't match the system expectations where you say, oh, I'm going to layer in Rollmaster level critical hits in my D&D 5e game. It really isn't quite geared towards that. It's not really built for that, kids. Some of that stuff can get wonky. And if you try to say, hey, I want to, again, with a player mismatch, the classic is like, hey, I want to be Delta Green. I've got guns all the time. I want to get in gunfights. Hey, you're going to die, dude. Because that's what happens when people get in gunfights. They get shot,
Now, having said all this, I know I've been banging on 5e for a little while because of reasons. But I'm telling you, man, if I ran Eberron and it was pulp and it was high action and it's like, hey, you guys want to take a short rest and a long rest and recoup your stuff because you did this, and that, and I threw the kitchen sink at you, and it's been 2 hours, I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Yeah, because you could turn that pressure knob all the way up to 11, man, because they could take it.
It's Eberron, man. There's magic. Healing potions are the deal. It's like, hey, I need to... That magic is... Keith always said when he created the world was, if magic is kind of the thing, then anybody could just have a light cantrip, then let's just make it so that we can light lamps and they stay lit at night. So same with healing in Speaking Stones and Eberron. But that's Eberron. That's not the same as I want in Curse of Strahd.
Yeah. Which
it's
is still
5e. I just don't like the same. That's not what I want. I don't want people swinging around the forests of Barovia taking on wolves like they're freaking, Night of the Living Dead.
And some of that comes
Shaun of the Dead, whatever, man. I don't know.
And I know somebody's saying, well, what you should do is run it with the system. And we talked about it with Swords of Wizardry.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. You could always change the system. The other piece, though, I think this comes back to what Gabe was talking about earlier and what you've chatted about, and we were saying at the top of the show, is that is everybody here want to do this? Get it clear. I'm going to run this game this way. Oh, yeah, but that's not my version of D&D. Well, then this isn't a good game for you. Because I'm going to play. That's totally fine. Still love you. Just move on. I'll call you back when we're done with this adventure. So, yeah.
Yeah. And for the record, Star Wars Age of Rebellion is not going to be, it's not going to be as gritty as I probably had maybe planned it to be. We're going to play it by the book. There's going to be med packs and stim packs and, critical hits. The critical hits chart can be pretty bad. That's one way you die. But
see, there's ways to be gritty that don't.
Wars.
There's ways to be gritty that don't have anything to do with injuries. People have a tendency, we take injuries and healing. Oh, that's gritty realism when you're down, you're beat to shit. So flip that script, kids, and you look at Star Wars now. Let's say, how would Brett make Star Wars gritty? Now, I don't know the Star Wars universe nearly as well as you or shit, of course, like Wayne or anybody like that. But it's emotional. It's role-playing effects of the grittiness. You did a thing. You got in a fight, and in the brawl, the bad guys grab a kid. If you're if that doesn't freak your players out, they hold a gun to his head. You give us what we want, or the kid gets it. Oh my god, that is like, well, that's dark. It's kind of gritty. Whatever. they still bounce back, but it's emotionally draining, right? It's the stress type of stuff that can hit you, because, hey, man, this is what happened. That woman you left on this planet, she's back and she's mad at you. And you're like, what? Oh, crap, man. That's how you can gritty the shit out of stuff without having it have to be a bloodbath. Gritty doesn't always mean getting hurt really bad.
And gritty in a Force 5 from Alderaan is mimicking the Inglourious Bastards to the point where you're a crack team and you're good. You're like, hey, you're part of the rebellion and you want to kill a bunch of Imperial troops. That's like, hey, man, that's what makes you get through the day. It's like, let's kill some troops. Arr.
Have you ever seen Chinatown?
I have not.
Okay. So Jake Getty's Jack's character in that movie gets somebody cuts his nose with a switchblade. He gets beat up, but he doesn't die from it. It's inconvenient. Right. It's still gritty.
Right.
Yeah.
With this is it the Rebels where it's kind of like, I would say the first 6 movies up to even Rogue One. Rogue One to me struck a chord when what's his name killed the guy on the colony in the alley. The stormtroopers. I don't remember if you've seen that movie.
I've seen it.
Have you seen
Yep,
Rogue One?
Yeah, I love
so,
it. So
early on in the movie,
it's my favorite Star Wars movie, which a lot of people get mad at me for.
He's getting the lowdown about the pilot, and the guy's freaking out and nervous, and the stormtroopers come down, and he's like, hey, and he ends up like, I gotta get out of here, and he kills him, and he's one of the good guys, and he killed an informant because he's gonna he didn't trust him to keep his mouth shut, so he's just like, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to gritty. Like you could be for the rebellion, but even when Rogue One they got the guys in the hangar, and they're like, yeah, we're assassins, scoundrels, all this. Those are guys that did a lot of bad things for the rebellion. That's what I was kind of thinking of and going for if I did a Force 5 from Alderaan thing, was like, you could do bad things to further the cause. You don't have to be the knights in shining armor. That would be kind of the line I was looking at.
No, so I think that's a good place for us to stop this year. I think that's the idea of having injuries and wounds and how you deal with healing and stuff. That is not the only thing that makes a game gritty or heroic or whatever. I think it can add to it, right? But it's not. It's not the only way. A lot of times when we say, gritty, we think about, critical hit charts and losing limbs and so on. Yeah. But, these other things are pretty damn gritty too. So, man, we wandered around a little bit on this one, but not too bad.
That's all right.
It's all right. We good?
It's our strength.
It is our strength.
D-roll. That roll 2 to 4 misses. Points, game, geek, agree. Want to bring to you. First one, Pathfinder Adventure Paths coming to Savage Worlds. So in case you slept through that one.
Yeah, that one snuck up, and Peer Monger, a couple of the rest of us like, wow, that's holy shit, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So there you go.
It's a big move for Pinnacle.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Still not sure why Paizo and their awesome APs aren't being for 5e, but that's just me.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
What else you got?
And this weekend, Sean, I went on a binger, man.
You went on a bender? What'd you get?
So Black Friday, damn you. So I splurged on Alien RPG.
Okay.
And then I bought Forbidden Lands.
Interesting.
Both are from Free League Publishing, kind of intriguing. Forbidden Lands, I'm interested on their take of kind of the old school, because they call it kind of they're looking back. It's with older, but they do things interesting as far as rules go. So I'm interested to find out more about that game. So I kind of took a leap of faith to check that out, to see what that's all about. Alien RPG, I heard good things. If you are even remotely interested in Alien RPG, the PDF's like $6 on drive-thru right now. $6
as of today, November 30th. $6.
Yes, as of November 30th this day. I don't know how much further.
Crazy.
I posted it in our Discord, but like it's a $30 book in PDF.
$25 book. It's $24.99. I'm looking at it right now. $6, $5.99.
I mean,
it's done as of today, dude. From now through November 30th.
Shit. Well, those live.
Good
Go out
for
and
you.
buy the
If
Alien
not,
RPG.
Yeah, it sucks to be you.
So they had some discounts over at Free League Publishing. I jumped on those. And then, of course, my local game store, I was like, when is this coming about? And they gave me a call and said, hey, your copy of Cyberpunk Red's in.
Nice.
Shit.
God
I
damn.
forgot. I asked them to get a copy for me. So I actually have that in hand. And then they have Bits of Border, so I got a PDF of version of that. It's Cyberpunk Red, man. It's a good size tome. I never played some of the earlier versions, but I had
a version, and I'm like, I got rid of it. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should get it. Maybe. Anyway, cool.
So, anyways, I just put those out there. I didn't really come across anything that I thought I could put out there this week, but since it was Black Friday, I just figured I'd throw out my shopping list. There you go.
Now, if you plan to get Sean any of those things for Christmas, cross it off, get him the other stuff. It'll be
yes,
fun.
Please do not buy me those things.
I already have those.
Brett, on the other hand, I don't think has any of them.
No, I don't. That's okay. I got plenty to do.
But other than that, I think that's all I have. Brett,
yeah.
What we haven't decided what we're talking about, or we gonna talk about that.
I'm thinking about talking about team play. The warden brought this up in our forums, and it's a pretty darn good discussion. It's about mechanics and team play and stuff. So right now, that's the leading topic for next week. So Sean and I'll buzz through that really nice forum discussion and pull out some goodies in there.
Whenever the word team is used, like team play, reminds me of the Untouchables. Remember that?
Yeah.
When Capone's walking around the
with
table
the
with the baseball bat.
He caves the guy's head in.
Team.
Crack! Yeah. That's pretty brutal.
It's like team, yeah. All right. So with that, thanks everybody that has tuned in live here on Twitch, Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you would like to participate in the chat room, that would be greatly appreciated. If not, that's okay. If you see this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe there. Otherwise, you can pick us up in your favorite podcatcher of choice where this is available in audio, where we edit some of the snafus of the video out. And it's just a smooth experience.
It's like butter.
Other than that, I'm your host, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.